Chapter 5. The Black Moon. For 3 nights, Abigail didn't sleep. Mateo's body was stabilized and taken to the underground infirmary, where a loyal witch healer named Yara kept him breathing through a painful blend of herbs, spells, and blood transfusions. His heartbeat was faint. His healing was slow. He should be recovering faster, Javier growled, pacing outside the infirmary. He's an alpha. Yara's voice was calm, but firm. The blade Catalina used wasn't just poisoned. It was enchanted with a severing spell, designed to disrupt a wolf's bond with his pack and his mate. Abigail's breath caught. That's why he's not waking up. Yara nodded. He's drifting between worlds. If he loses the bond to you, he may not return. A silence fell between them. Abigail stared at the closed door. What do I have to do? She asked. Yara studied her carefully. The Black Moon is tomorrow. If you want to save him, you'll need to enter the spirit realm and reclaim his soul. But the price is steep. I'll pay it, even if it means becoming like him. Abigail didn't flinch. Yes. The night of the Black Moon arrived. It was a rare celestial event, no light in the sky, just a bottomless darkness that seemed to stretch for eternity. In the supernatural world, it marked a surge in power and chaos. Wards weakened. Magic intensified. And for werewolves, the shift became uncontrollable. Abigail lay in a ritual circle drawn in salt and wolfsbane. Yara chanted in an old tongue, her hands coated in blood and ash. Around them, the house was silent. Even the wolves didn't stir. When the chant reached its peak, Abigail's body went limp. Her soul entered the realm beyond. The spirit world was a landscape of fog and broken time. Abigail wandered through fragments of memories, hers and Mateo's. The alley where she had first seen him. The dinner table where he told her not to be late. The undercellar. The transformation. The kiss. And then she saw him. Mateo, suspended in a field of black roses, blood staining his chest. Eyes closed. Face pale. She ran to him. Mateo. He didn't stir. A creature stepped from the shadows, tall, robed in bone and fur, its face hidden behind a wolf skull. Who dares challenge death? It hissed. I do, Abigail said. You are mortal, fragile, unworthy. I'm his mate. The creature tilted its head. Then pay the price. Pain tore through Abigail. Her body cracked, her bones shifting. Fur erupted from her arms. Her scream echoed through the void. But she didn't stop. She crawled toward Mateo, through agony and blood. She kissed his forehead. His eyes opened. He gasped, and the world shattered. Abigail awoke screaming. Yara caught her as her body spasmed. Breathe. You're safe. The pain was unlike anything she'd known. Her senses were sharper. Her heartbeat wild. And her eyes, when she looked in the mirror, were glowing gold. You're one of us now, Yara whispered. Abigail stumbled into the infirmary, still weak, still burning. Mateo sat upright in the bed, blinking in confusion. Their eyes met. He smiled. You came for me. She collapsed into his arms, sobbing. You idiot. You weren't allowed to die. He held her tight. Neither were you. The next day, the war drums beat. The Cruz Ramirez clan was coming. And this time, Abigail wouldn't hide. She wore armor lined in obsidian and silver. She led troops, gave commands. Her presence, newly turned, radiating authority, rallied the pack. Mateo stood at her side, healthy and whole, the mark of a true alpha glowing on his shoulder. You're not just my mate anymore, he told her. You're my equal. And when the Cruz Ramirez wolves charged the estate, they met a fury they didn't expect. Abigail tore through enemies like she was born for it. Her body moved with instinct. Her fangs sank into traitors. She fought beside Mateo, back to back, as the night burned. Raúl lost a leg. Javier took a blade to the ribs. The grounds were soaked in blood. But they won. When the dust settled, Abigail stood over the last enemy alpha and offered him a choice. Leave, or join us. He spat at her feet. She broke his neck. Mateo watched with pride and fear. That night, they stood under the stars, both changed, both scarred. "Does it scare you?" she asked. "What I've become?" He brushed her cheek. "No. It humbles me." They kissed again, deeper this time, not as strangers bound by contract, but as wolves mated for life. Chapter 6. What Remains of the Heart. Weeks passed. The estate was quieter now, but the scars of war lingered. Repair crews worked day and night, replacing shattered windows and buried bodies. The victory was theirs, but peace was fragile. Abigail stood on the balcony outside her chamber, wrapped in a wool cloak, eyes fixed on the darkened treetops. The moon was waning. The pack was restless. Mateo's council had fractured, and whispers spread through the halls like wildfire. "Too much power in one bite," Raoul muttered one night. "She was human. Now she's leading wolves. That kind of shift breeds resentment." Abigail heard it all. The doubts, the bitterness, the fear. But what haunted her most was her own heart. She'd grown stronger, faster, fiercer, more dangerous, but also colder. Something inside her had shifted after the spirit realm. Sometimes she'd wake from nightmares drenched in sweat, her claws half-shifted, her eyes glowing in the dark. She had the instincts of a wolf, but the memories of a woman who once painted flowers and dreamed of gallery lights. Mateo noticed the changes. "You don't laugh like you used to," he told her softly one morning as they lay in bed, limbs tangled. "I don't dream like I used to," she replied. He kissed her shoulder. "Then let's dream again. Together." But it wasn't that simple. The Cruz Ramirez clan had splintered, but new enemies stirred beyond their borders. Hunters, now aware of the supernatural fallout, had begun moving in. Old alliances needed to be reforged. Treaties needed blood seals. "You've made enemies you don't even know exist yet," Javier warned. "And one of them knows your name." The letter arrived during a storm. A black envelope, sealed in red wax. Inside, a single sentence. "The girl who walks through death has no right to rule the living." Mateo growled the second he read it. "The Order of Thorns." Abigail's brow furrowed. "Who are they? Witch-born. Old magic. They believe those who've crossed into the spirit realm are cursed. Marked. A danger to balance. And they've destroyed entire bloodlines to prove their point." "Why now?" she asked. "Because they fear you." Abigail knew what had to be done. She traveled to the borderlands, where the witches of the old world still kept sacred ground. Accompanied by only Raoul and a reluctant Mateo, she sought an audience with the Circle, the last neutral coven. At their head was Mother Riona, blind but all-seeing. She welcomed Abigail with wary arms. "You carry death within you," the elder witch murmured, tracing a line across Abigail's chest with one finger. "A fragment of the void. That's why they hunt you. Can it be removed?" Abigail asked. Mother Riona shook her head. "It is not a disease. It is part of you now. Then I'll fight them." The witch nodded. "But first, you must choose." "Choose what?" "Your future. Will you be Queen of Wolves, or Destroyer of Bloodlines?" Abigail's silence stretched into eternity. That night, under an open sky, Mateo found her alone by the sacred lake. "Talk to me," he said. Her voice was raw. "What if I'm the monster they say I am?" "You're not." "How do you know?" "Because I was one before you, and I remember the cold. You're warm, Abigail. Even when you're burning." He cupped her face. "You saved me. You saved everyone. Don't let them rewrite your truth." She stared into his eyes. "Would you still love me if I became something terrible?" "I'd love you even if the world turned to ash around us." They kissed under moonlight. But the shadows watched. Far beyond the coven's trees, something stirred. An army was coming. And it wasn't just after Abigail. It was after the throne. Chapter 7. The Crown of Ashes. The battlefield was silent before the storm. Abigail stood before the gathered pack in the training grounds, the wind tugging at her cloak like impatient fingers. She'd changed. They all saw it. Not just in her glowing eyes or the quiet steel in her voice, but in the way the earth itself seemed to hush when she spoke. Mateo stood at her side, healed in body but still guarded in spirit. There was a distance in his eyes he hadn't worn before, not fear, but reverence. He had seen her die and return, had watched her crown herself with fire and grief. Now, she was no longer just his mate. She was becoming legend. Javier laid out the map on the war table. The order will strike tomorrow at dawn. They're bringing witches, mercenaries, and worse. Half-breeds, skinwalkers. Raoul added, they'll breach from the east. The wards are weakest there. Abigail studied the map. Then that's where I'll stand. Mateo's hand landed hard on the table. You don't have to prove anything to them. She met his gaze. It's not about proof. It's about duty. They came for me. I'll be the one they face. That night, sleep evaded her. She wandered the estate, past blood-stained stones and shattered statues, until she found herself in the gallery, once a sacred place where she painted. The canvases were covered in dust. She wiped one clean and picked up a brush. Her hand shook, then steadied. She painted. A wolf, bathed in moonlight. Alone, but never broken. At dawn, the sky cracked open. The order arrived in silence, dark-robed witches, twisted beasts on leashes, men with glyphs carved into their skin. Their leader, a woman named Lysandra, stood in the center. Her beauty was sharp, cruel, cold as winter's bone. You carry death, girl, Lysandra called across the field. Surrender, and we'll make it painless. Abigail stepped forward, armored in leather and silver, the pack at her back. I am death, she said, and I do not kneel. The battle erupted. Wolves clashed with dark magic. The sky burned with spells. Javier was impaled by a shard of shadow, dragging himself across bloodied grass to kill the warlock who struck him. Raoul tore through skinwalkers with a silver axe, even as fire singed his fur. And Abigail, she danced with fury. Her claws shredded curses. Her voice shattered spells. She found Lysandra in the chaos. You could have ruled, the witch sneered. But you chose to rot beside him. I chose love, Abigail snarled. That's what you'll never understand. They clashed. Magic versus moonblood. Light against shadow. In the end, Abigail drove her blade into Lysandra's chest, whispering, This is for every life you tried to erase. The witch screamed as she disintegrated into ash. Silence followed. Then cheering. The order was broken. The pack had won. But the cost was written in blood. Dozens dead. The land scarred. Abigail collapsed to her knees. Mateo rushed to her, cradling her face. You did it. No, she whispered. We did. Later, the pack gathered under the full moon. They crowned her with silver and howlite, the ancient stones of leadership. The title of Luna Queen had not been spoken in generations. She accepted it. Not because she wanted power, but because she had bled for it. She looked to Mateo, who knelt before her with a solemn smile. She reached out, pulled him to his feet. Beside me, she said. They howled as one. The past burned behind them. But a new era had begun. Chapter 8. The Bond Beyond Blood. The morning after the war felt like waking from a long, fevered dream. The scent of ash lingered on the wind, and the grass was still stained with blood, but the silence was no longer ominous. It was sacred. A world slowly breathing again. Abigail sat atop the ridge overlooking the valley, watching smoke curl up from ceremonial pyres below. The dead were being honored. Each name whispered into the sky, each flame a promise they wouldn't be forgotten. Mateo joined her, quietly. He didn't speak, only offered her his hand. She took it. They were loyal, she murmured. To the very end. They followed a queen, he replied. She turned to look at him. They followed us. He smiled. Then let's give them something worth following. In the days that followed, Abigail led rebuilding efforts. The estate became more than a fortress, it became a sanctuary. Wolves from fractured clans arrived in trickles at first, then in droves. Orphans. Exiles. Even humans who had witnessed the supernatural and survived it. Abigail met them all. Spoke to each. Learned their stories. You're not what I expected in a Luna, one elder told her. She smiled. Neither am I. She established new laws, ones that welcomed hybrids, punished betrayal, and forbade blood oaths without consent. The old ways were buried with the ashes of the order. Some resisted the change. Some left. But most stayed. Because she wasn't just queen by power. She was queen by pain. And that made her real. One evening, as crimson spilled across the sky, Mateo led her to the courtyard where they'd first danced after the contract ceremony. "I never thought I'd fall in love again," he said. "I never thought I'd live long enough to," she replied. He knelt before her, not out of formality, but with trembling sincerity. No contracts. No war. No death hanging over our heads. He produced a small ring, carved from moonstone and obsidian. "Abigail Russell, will you marry me, this time for real?" Her laughter was wet with tears. "You absolute fool. Of course I will." The wedding took place beneath the full moon, surrounded by wolves and whispers, by firelight and flower crowns. There were no thrones. No royal robes. Only a woman and a man who had survived the impossible. Raoul limped down the aisle with a grin. Javier, recovering but alive, gave a gruff toast. Even Yara wept. When they kissed, the pack howled in celebration. It was not the end of their battles. But it was the beginning of something else. A life. Later that night, as they lay in each other's arms, Mateo whispered, "Do you regret it?" Abigail traced his scars gently. "Every part of me that was broken led me here. I don't regret a single crack. I was afraid I'd lose you." "You did," she said softly. "But I came back stronger." He pressed his forehead to hers. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." She nodded. Together. And somewhere in the distance, the moon shone brighter, like a promise carved into the stars. The end.